Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is the video that I was talking about late last week in the podcast, the WWDC video. For all of you who might not be familiar with what that is, WWDC stands for Worldwide Developers Conference. It's an event Apple does every year to showcase new hardware, new software, and kind of the direction they're going to be going in for the remainder of the year. So there's a lot of stuff that was going on with it, a lot of announcements, a lot of new products, stuff like that. So I thought I'd just do a separate video on it so I could kind of talk about everything all at once rather than... I'm still going to have to skim over some stuff because otherwise I'd be here all day, but I'm going to at least be able to break it up into categories a little bit for us and break everything down at least a little bit more and let you guys know what's new with Apple. I mean, whether you're an Apple fan or not, they're a very important, very large company, and they tend to set trends that other companies sometimes and very often follow. So, it's always important to talk about what they're doing and see what they have in store for us. So I thought I'd start things off with the software announcements that they made. So yeah, let's get right into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about is iOS 11. I'm not going to go through everything that's new with iOS 11 because again, that in and of itself could be a separate video, but the few things that I wanted to talk about that I thought were of note were mostly the first two. There's other stuff in here that's pretty interesting as well, but I thought that was really cool with iMessages. What you're going to be able to do now is you're going to be able to use Apple Pay in iMessage. I think they said that there's going to be a separate app for it, or I don't know exactly. Yeah, there's going to be a separate app for it in iOS 11. So basically, you can pay people using Apple Pay, right in your messaging system in your phone, which is pretty cool. So, if you go out to dinner and you forgot your wallet on you or something, and then you're like, oh, I'll throw you $20 later once I get home, you can just message your friend and do it right like that, stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. They're going to be using fingerprint identification, like the Touch ID, in order to help authenticate everything and allow payments to go through and stuff, just like you would expect. But I thought that was a pretty handy new little feature. And the other thing they were talking about too was new stuff with Siri. They want to make Siri smarter, of course, because they were competing with Google Assistant and stuff like that. So one of the things they talked about with Siri is they're going to be allowing her to translate into different languages. So you could ask Siri, how do I say this phrase in, I forget what they say, Chinese or Spanish. Yeah, so when it first comes out, it's going to be Chinese, French, German, Italian, and Spanish translation from English. So perhaps you're traveling somewhere and you're not quite sure how to ask a question, something like that. So Siri might be able to help you out with stuff like that, which I think is pretty cool. And the other thing they talked about with Siri, too, was making suggestions for you based on things you do. So say you... maybe you're looking at concert tickets or something like that. Siri might say, hey, I noticed that you bought some concert tickets. Do you want me to put that in your calendar for you? Stuff like that. I didn't use that as an example. I'm just kind of making stuff up. But stuff like that, being able to put stuff in your calendar and make suggestions for stuff for you to do, or maybe set reminders for you, trying to help make your life easier, so to speak. And there's a lot more that's new with iOS 11. I'm just kind of going over the things that I thought were kind of cool. So as per usual, I have links to everything down below if you guys want to check it out. But that's my kind of quick gloss over iOS 11. But one other thing that was pretty interesting with iOS 11 was iOS 11 removed support for 32-bit apps, which is pretty interesting. So this is only going to be coming to 64-bit iOS-enabled devices. So, for example, iPhones, like the oldest iPhone that we're getting this is going to be the iPhone 5S, because that was their first 64-bit iPhone. So if you have a 5, a 5C, and obviously like a 4S or anything going back older, this is not going to be for you, you will not get it. But the other thing to take note is that 32-bit applications, unless they've been remade or recoded or enabled to work or on a 64-bit operating system, those will no longer work either. So if there's applications that you really like that are still 32-bit that maybe you've been using for a long time, just be aware that they probably will no longer work on iOS 11. So keep that in mind as well. It's interesting to see Apple finally, kind of going all in with 64 bits on their iOS devices. I hope that they're giving developers ample time to maybe port their apps over to 64-bit or maybe to recreate them, do what they need to do. I'm not a developer. That's a little bit above me, but, I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that have been using the same apps for a very long time and, might not be super stoked on the fact that that might not work anymore. So if you're an iPhone user out there, be aware of that with the next iOS update, is that if you're using 32-bit apps, they're probably not going to work. Just heads up. Moving on, though. The other thing was macOS High Sierra, which is, their newest version of macOS, formerly OS X. There's quite a bit that's new with this, but again, I'm going to kind of just talk about a few things that I think are, noteworthy, pretty cool. One of the things is they're going to be using a new file system. So they're getting rid of HFS, which was the file system they've been using for quite some time now, and they're moving over to APFS. In case you can't guess, it stands for Apple File System. Big shocker. But yeah, they're claiming that it's, going to be a lot faster, stuff like that. Going to have a lot better speeds in terms of transferring video. Like they did a demonstration. They had a 7 gig file. And these are kind of rough numbers here, but they say that Sierra took about 10 seconds. And High Sierra did so, quote unquote, almost instantly. So I'm thinking maybe 1 or 2 seconds pretty much. So that's awesome. I mean, if you're able to really transfer files right now, that's obviously, as far as I remember, I think that's just locally inside of the machine. But still, I mean, just being able to get files transferred around that fast is awesome. So if you need to get work done, then that's very handy. But the things that I was super stoked on personally was something new with Safari, which obviously I'm not using. I mean, I'm clearly using a Windows system here, but one of the things that I really like that they're going to be introducing with the new version of Safari is something called autoplay blocking, which basically, if you've ever been to a website and they have a video or music that autoplays and you forget to have your speakers turned down and you get blasted in the face with this super loud sound that you didn't ask for, well, this, should help prevent that, because they're just going to prevent that from even happening. They won't necessarily stop ads from getting through, but at least you won't get blasted in the face with a video or a bunch of loud noise that you didn't ask for when you're just trying to read an article or something like that. So I'm definitely very down for that. I would love to see that in Chrome and Firefox and Edge and everywhere. I think that's a great idea, because we've all been to websites where you're just trying to read an article, and like I said, you get blasted in the face with noise. So if we can help prevent that from happening, that is really good. And the other thing that I thought was cool was called Intelligent Tracking Prevention. So basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent the thing that happens where, like say you're looking on Amazon at like fishing rods or graphics cards or whatever it may be, and then a day or two or even later in that day, you're on a different website and you see ads along the side of the page for fishing rods or graphics cards, stuff like that. They're trying to get rid of cross-website tracking so that, you're not just getting fed ads for stuff that you've been looking at very recently, which is kind of nice. So I guess they're basically just trying to cut down on the intrusiveness of the I don't want to use the word spying, but the intrusiveness of the kind of data collected on your machine, which I am always for. So that is pretty cool. I'm actually pretty glad to see Apple doing that. Yeah, so that's a few of the things that I thought were pretty noteworthy about High Sierra. Of course, there's a lot more that I'm not talking about, but there are, like I said, articles in the description. Feel free to check them all out if you want. Moving on though, SteamVR is coming to Mac. What? Even I was a little like, what about this? Because there's a lot to talk about this. So SteamVR is coming to Mac. That is a thing, yes. But I thought that it was very interesting because as of right now, there's not a whole lot of Macs that are capable of running VR like anything. So how do you kind of get around this? Well, one of the things they talked about and announced was a external graphics enclosure. I don't think they have it listed in this. I think it was actually at the end of the last article, but they talked about an external graphics enclosure that's going to be coming to be able to use with like MacBook Pros, stuff like that. That you can put an external graphics card into. In this case, they're saying it's going to be an AMD RX 580, which is a reasonably powerful graphics card, and then you run that over Thunderbolt 3, and you can access it on your MacBook Pro or whatever other Apple device you might be using at the time. Now, right now, they're kind of pitching that more for developers, which is pretty cool, but, I mean, we've also seen issues with, at least on the Windows side of things anyway, where, these external graphics enclosures can cause pretty huge dips in performance. So I don't know how that's going to be on Apple's side. Maybe, depending on their implementation, maybe they have a lot of that figured out. Maybe they can get rid of a lot of software overhead associated with it. I don't know. I would hope so. But it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm stoked to see that, maybe maybe I'll actually be able to play some games. Well, not that you can't play games on Apple at all. There's definitely lots of games you can play, but it'd be nice to see like VR coming to Apple machines is pretty awesome. And hopefully with SteamVR coming, there'll be a lot more VR games and maybe even some more Steam games coming. It'd be nice, everybody likes to play games. I mean, whether you're on Windows or Linux or macOS, I mean, it's just always nice to have the option, right? So I'm not going to complain about that at all. I think that's pretty cool. They had a pretty cool demo. It was like a Star Wars theme thing. So there's somebody standing. You could see her here. They had like ships, and I think Darth Vader was involved, and a bunch of other pretty crazy stuff. So it's pretty awesome to see VR coming to Apple products. That is pretty sweet. But that's about it for software stuff anyway. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of hardware that was announced as well. And for me personally, I'm a bit of a hardware junkie, so this is where it gets pretty interesting. So first thing up was Apple's HomePod. This is basically their version, or their version. They're going to be trying to compete with like the likes of Amazon Echo and the Google Home, stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think that's part of the reason why they're trying to step up their game with Siri as well, and in a way of trying to compete. But here's a kind of a bit of a picture for it here, and it's pretty interesting the way they've laid this all out. So you've got 6 different microphones all along the sides, 7 different tweeters, which is pretty insane. 1 nice big sub, well, reasonably large for the size, and they put in Apple. They say it was an A8 chip, which if I remember correctly, I think is the one that came in the iPhone 6, I want to say. I could be wrong. But it's the iPhone 6-ish, roughly, chip. This doesn't need quite the same level of power as a lot of other devices do, so not really an issue there, but I think it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously they're trying to push music with this a lot with the amount of speakers and stuff they have in this thing. So it'd be interesting to see how it sounds and how it functions and everything, if they can really step up their game with Siri and her voice recognition and translation and all that stuff like I was talking about earlier. Then this could be a pretty interesting product, but it is going to be $350 US. So it's definitely going to be expensive. Maybe that's not a big deal for some of you. Like for me, I don't have an assistant at home anyway, but $350 US is pretty expensive. I'm in Canada, so that's going to be probably $500 or so, maybe $450. Like, it's gonna be expensive, so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how that works out. But it's a pretty cool product nonetheless, and we'll end up seeing later this year, and we'll see how it works out for them. Moving on though, new iPad Pros. So the iPad Pros changed not a whole lot, but a little bit from the last generation. So now, instead of the 9.7 inch and the 12.9 inch, we have the 12.9 inch, still new version. But now the smaller one is a 10.5, so we've got a little bit bigger screen on it. But my big thing with the screen, like it says in the article, is 120 hertz on these panels. I don't know what you would need to be doing, especially on an iPad Pro, like on any mobile device really, to warrant a 120 hertz screen, but apparently these things are rocking 120 hertz screens, which is pretty baller. Really, for a tablet, that's pretty baller. Yeah, there's a couple of other new things with them too. Like now they're using the same camera as the iPhone 7, so they have a really, really nice camera built into them. You can do 4K video recording, that whole kind of thing. They've upgraded the color gamut for the displays, so they will show a wider range of colors, which is always nice. They're kind of doing that along with everything. Like they did that with the iPhone recently, the iMacs recently as well. Now it's getting onto the iPad Pro, so that's pretty cool. Definitely pretty stoked for that. The only thing with these is they are expensive. The 10.5 inch starts at $650, and the 12.5 inch starts at $800. These are US prices, by the way. So definitely not cheap tablets. But I mean, I don't know, if you're the kind of person that really, really travels a lot, and maybe something like the MacBook or the MacBook Pro 13 inch is still a little bit big. I don't know. Maybe these are worth it to you. I personally don't see a huge use case scenario for these, but clearly people like them. And I mean, I'm sure you can get a lot done on them. There's, the Apple Pen they have, and the keyboard you can see here that you can get along with it as well. So, I mean, you can get stuff done on it. It's not for me, so I don't fully understand why you would get one of these. But hey, I mean, they're pretty cool. It's always nice to see them getting upgraded, refreshed. I want to know what you need a 120 hertz screen for, though. That's my big question. But anyway, moving on. Speaking of refreshes, the MacBook and the MacBook Pro both got upgrades to Kaby Lake, however you want to pronounce it. But yeah, this was pretty much expected. There's really not a whole lot to talk about here. I mean, it is what it is. You get slightly better battery life, slightly better performance, slightly better graphics. No complaints there. I mean, whatever. The only thing that I thought was kind of funny is the MacBook, the real thin one, not the MacBook Pros, the regular MacBook, starts at $1299, and the 13-inch MacBook Pro without the touch bar, without the little OLED touch bar they put in recently, also starts at $1299. So it's an interesting choice in terms of what you get for that money. Like with the MacBook Pro, obviously you're going to get a lot more power, but it's a little thicker and heavier and stuff. But I mean, they're already so small. I don't know. I just thought it was funny that they're the same price. I thought they would maybe have a little bit more differentiation in price between the two, but yeah, the MacBook is the same price as the cheapest MacBook Pro now, so it's kind of an interesting thing. I will say the MacBook itself, like the little thin guy, that one's probably going to benefit more from Kaby Lake in terms of performance. I don't know about battery life, but just because Kaby Lake is a lot better with boosting to those higher clocks for a little bit longer with the the lower voltages and the lower power and thermal requirements. So, if you're already looking at a MacBook, now would be an even better time because now the new ones are out. And this is going to be my last thing for today, and this is the one I was personally most interested in, was the new iMacs and the iMac Pro. We'll talk about the iMac Pro in just a second. But there are, new iMacs are out. Same thing, they got upgraded to Kaby Lake, however you want to pronounce it. But they got upgraded to Intel's latest processors, which is great. So now you can get 64 gigs RAM on the 27-inch or 32 on the 21.5-inch, which is awesome. They're still available in 4K on the small one and 5K on the large one, which is great. And of course, now you can also get the iMac Retina, the 5K, the 27-inch, with either I think it's 570, 575, which I'm not sure what that is, or a 580 AMD graphics card, and I think they all have 8 gigs of VRAM, so not too shabby. The 4K 21.5-inch starts at $1,300 US, and it starts at $1,800 US for the 5K 27-inch model. So, actually, not completely insane pricing. I don't know exactly what you get for that. I'd have to go check, but $1,300 for a 4K monitor by itself is almost half of that. So the fact that they're giving you a whole computer for that, it's actually pretty damn good. I mean, same with the 5K model. I mean, a 5K screen, I don't even know what one of those costs by itself, but it's probably close to $1,800. So, I mean, I got to hand it to Apple for that. I mean, in that sense, they're giving you a pretty reasonable price, I think, anyway, for what you get for everything. But this is the thing I wanted to talk about the most, and one of the reasons why I even wanted to make this video was the iMac Pro. Because I could talk about this thing for a while. I'm going to try not to, but this is going to be interesting. So it's going to be apparently in the same chassis, same size as the 27-inch model right now, but it's going to pack in a whole lot more horsepower. So Apple was talking about up to 18 cores, 18 Xeon cores, up to 128 gigs of RAM. It's going to have an AMD Vega graphics card in it. Yeah, AMD Vega graphics card in it with up to 16 gigs of HBM2, which is, whew, for an all-in-one, that's insane. I got to hand it to Apple. That's crazy. And then, of course, it's going to have other stuff you would expect. It's going to have SSDs in it, obviously, with anywhere from 1 to 4 terabytes of storage. You're going to be, I think I said 4? Yeah, 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and built-in 10 gig Ethernet, which is sweet. 10 gig Ethernet is awesome. It is the future. I would love to be running 10 gig everywhere around here, but that's a story for another time. So this thing is, decked out. Super balls to the wall. I think they started an 8-core model and then go up to 18 from there. So you can really deck this thing out if you want, but they're going to start at $5,000 US. It's pretty expensive. So I don't know. The question that I have about this is, are we still going to see a new Mac Pro, like a desktop, like a tower or a new trash can? Are we going to get any sort of new Mac Pro, or is this it? Is this the replacement, I mean, this thing is so powerful. I mean, if you're going to get up to 18 cores, 128 gigs RAM, like a Vega GPU, I mean, that's pretty much a full desktop. That's more powerful than my big desktop I got under this, table here by a lot. So I don't know. I would like to see Apple come out with another nice big tower like they used to, This is how you can add in a graphics card, or this is how you can add in a hard drive, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's a lot of hardcore Apple users out there that would really like that functionality, but I just worry if this is the replacement for it completely. Maybe they're abandoning desktops and just going with all-in-ones and laptops. I don't know. It's an interesting time to be an Apple fan and an Apple user, I think. I hope they still come out with a desktop, but I guess we'll have to play the wait-and-see game. Anyway, I know I've been rambling on for a while now, so I'm going to get out of here. But thank you so much for watching. As always, like I said, all the links to everything are down in the description below if you want to check out anything else out. And, of course, if you think I missed something, if there was something else I didn't talk about that you think I should have, also let me know. So, next time I can include it when I do my video for WWDC next year. But until next time, thank you for watching, everybody. Like the video if you liked it. Share it with your friends. Feel free to subscribe. We got new videos every week. And, yeah, until then, I will see you guys in the next one.